Hello, everybody. Welcome to the StattoJoe Podcast. It is season 2. We have relaunched, but unfortunately, it is just me today. Luke is busy. I think he hates me personally, which is probably fair enough. But anyway, we're back. We're back for good. I want you back. I want you back. I want you back for good. Today's a bit of a preview. The Premier League obviously starts tomorrow night for those who are watching on day of release. Starts on Friday, the 13th of August. And so I thought it would be amiss of me not to do a bit of a preview show, probably about 40 minutes, not too mental. And there's going to be two main parts today. So the first part, we're going to start with looking at my fantasy team. We're going to talk through my fantasy team, why I've made the choices I've made. I'm not a fantasy expert, so I can't give you like big tips and stuff. To be honest, it's only the second season I've ever done fantasy, so I'm a newcomer, I'm a beginner. Maybe you guys can give me tips in the comments, or if you're listening on audio, you can tweet me, give me some tips for fantasy because I have no clue. And then secondly, I'm going to go through the Premier League table and I'm going to make my predictions on every single position where teams are going to finish this year. Should be a good one. I hope you watch, enjoy, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, I hope that this show goes down well for you. In the intro portion of the show, which is for podcast audio listeners only, I will have explained what the plan is for the podcast, kind of moving forward, what we're going to do, how we're going to make it more interactive for you guys to get involved. So if you want to listen to that in the audio, go ahead and listen to that. I may also post a clip up on Facebook, so it could be there as well. But anyway, let's dive right into it straight away with fantasy. Now, fantasy is a strange one. For those who don't know how fantasy works, okay, you get 15 players and you've got a budget of 100 million, right? So you have to really be aware of where you're spending your money. Now, it works out at like just over 6 million a player, which is generous, but it does mean you can only make a few big signings. You are going to have to be aware of your budget. And I know when I was picking my team, there are a couple of ones in there that are purely for budget reasons. Because I kind of went big on the midfield and attack, which I think a lot of people do. And so I didn't have a lot of room when I was getting into the kind of back positions. But my actual process of picking was quite awkward. I found it really difficult to get the right rhythm in terms of I would maybe pick 3 defenders of the 5, and then I was like, oh, maybe I need to wait. I'll go on to the midfielders and maybe pick 3 of them and then 2 attackers. And I found it quite stressful picking my team. I won't lie. I want to do well, of course. Of course I do. But I know I'm not going to do very well compared to a lot of you guys who have done it for years. In the Euros, in the Euro fantasy, I messed up really, really badly. I forgot to change a team for the quarterfinals. I think I might have finished bottom of the StattoJoe fantasy group. I have no idea. If you do want to get involved, the code for the Fantasy League is in the description of this video and in the podcast, and the link will be in the description on YouTube as well. So if you want to join the Fantasy League, just click that link, get your team in there. And without further ado, let me show you my team and let me kind of talk you through my thought process. Here we go. We'll start with the starting 11 first. So my first choice was goalkeeper. I went for goalkeeper straight away. I know a lot of people say don't, but I like to have each position worked down, kind of what I'm going to pick, what I'm going to do. I don't know. I just kind of like to be like that. Fight me, right? Fight me. If you think that's so bad, fight me. But Martinez last season was the best goalkeeper for fantasy. As you can see, nearly 40% of people have chosen him. 5.5 million, expensive for a keeper, but look at the number of points he got last season. He got 186 points, which is massive for a goalkeeper. And to me, I think with the start that Villa have, I think that he's a great shout to start off with. I think they could get a clean sheet against Watford in the first day. And I think that it's a safe and comfortable option that isn't as expensive as your Alisson, your Edersons, etc. I hemmed and hawed about Dean Henderson because I'm not really sure what the goalkeeper situation is at United. I think it'll be interesting to see in the first couple of weeks whether they start with Henderson, whether they start with De Gea. So that was one I was looking at. But I do think Martinez is a safe bet. The substitute goalkeeper I went for was Ben Foster, £4 million. To be honest, I just thought he might get game time the odd time, but I may change that later on in the season if I feel that that substitute goalkeeper isn't worth it. Then we go to the back four. I've gone for a 4-4-2. Very, very simple. I like my simple pleasures. And I've gone a bit rogue. I've gone for 3 fullbacks. The reason being, fullbacks are more likely to give you assists, and that obviously gives you more points. And I just think that it makes sense, especially with the budget that I had. For me, Van Dijk absolutely had to go in there. I think Liverpool with Van Dijk have a really good shot at being a much firmer defence this season. We know last year, obviously, for Liverpool, did not go the way they wanted at all. With the likes of Van Dijk being injured, loads of other injuries as well. He never had a consistent centre-back pairing. But what we're looking at is potentially either a Van Dijk Joe Gomez, Van Dijk Matip, or Van Dijk Konate partnership in there, which for me could be a really solid defence. They've lost Robertson. Tsimikas will come in. I've started him. He's a cheap defender. Let me just check how much he was, actually. He was only 4 million. So I think at this stage I was quite low on the budget. I wasn't sure what to do. But he will start, and their first game's against Norwich. And for me, that could be a clean sheet that gets an instant 6 points. An easy 6 points for a player who's not worth a lot of money. I think that for now, for the first few games, I actually think it's really worth, if you're low on your budget, putting someone like Tsimikas in. Digne, on the other side, I've picked purely because my memory of him last season was quite an influence out on the wings for Everton. It depends what style of football they play. That could change. If Rafa comes in and plays a conservative style of football, kind of a bit like Park the Bus-esque, then Digne's effect won't be the same. But I know that last season he provided a lot of assists for Calvert-Lewin. And I do think personally that if he can match that again with the assists, he's going to be well worth putting in. Again, I think he's going to be $5.5 million, which I think that's expensive for defenders. But you can see there again, 20% of people picked him. I think that shows. He's got an influence there. And then finally, I think this was a bargain. Was he 5? I picked Luke Shaw. I think Luke Shaw was superb last season. 5.5 again. He was superb at the Euros. Look at that. 55% of people picked him. I did not. I did not know that. If he plays anywhere near the level he played last season, I think he's going to be super. Could get you a good amount of points. United could be pretty good with the clean sheets. They've got Varane coming in hopefully soon. That deal looks like it's almost done. So what you're going to be seeing is potentially a lot of clean sheets from United. What you want to maximise your defenders, really, is if you can, are clean sheets and assists. Now, I left out Trent. The reason I did so was because of the players I've picked further on up the pitch. But yeah, that's just how I feel about the defence. The midfield 4 that I have starting. Oh, sorry, I should say actually. The other defender I've put in there is Connor Cody. He's on the bench. 4.5 million. I don't think Wolves are going to be great this season, to be honest. I worry about them. I put Connor Cody in just because he's cheap and he's a decent player and he could do something, but I don't know if Wolves are going to keep many clean sheets this season. I think that'll be interesting to see as well. But anyway, if we move on to the midfield, so it may be Northern Irish bias. But for me, for his price, now midfielders are expensive in this game. He was 5.5 million. For me, Stuart Dallas is a must-have in your team. The reason being, he'll pretty much play, unless he's injured, he'll play every game for Leeds, right? He's creative. He scores goals. We saw that last season. He was Leeds' second highest goal scorer. And whether he plays midfield or defence is kind of yet, no one really knows. It changes every game. The issue is playing Dallas in midfield. You don't have a choice, obviously. That's the way he's set. Is that if he plays defence at right back, as he does a lot of the time for Leeds, you won't get that same level of credit for a clean sheet. Now, that was what was in my head, but it was a price thing. He was very, very cheap. And that's why I've put him in. But I think Dallas is probably one of the hardest working players in the Premier League, and that's not me being biased at all. And I think that he provides a good number of assists. He scored a few goals, and whenever Leeds do get a clean sheet, which obviously isn't often, he'll get the bonus point too. So I do think he's a must-have player in there. He'll always play 90 minutes, so you're always guaranteed those 2 points if you have a bad week. But I do think he's kind of a must-have player in your team. Moving on, I've put Mason Mount in the midfield. I think Mason Mount is superb. We've seen that. We saw it even last night. He played well when he came on in the Super Cup final against Villarreal. And I think he's grown in confidence as a player. He continues to grow. He makes assists, he makes plays, he scores goals. And I think he's good. There was a bit of a toss-up here between him and Havertz. I think Havertz is going to have a breakout season. I think that Havertz is gonna really shine this season, and I was debating whether to put him in. It's one of those things where if later on down the season Mount isn't doing it, I could swap him out for Tielemans. Not Tielemans, he's the player beside. Not Tielemans, for Havertz. So just keep an eye out on that Chelsea midfield. For anyone who picks Kante, I'm sorry, but he's not going to get you that many points. He is not a fantasy player. He's very cheap for a reason. Yes, he's one of the best players in the Premier League, but he will not get you that many points. Doesn't create a lot and doesn't really score often, so you're not going to get maximum points with Kante. I've made that mistake before. I've learned my lesson. I've grown up. Then beside Mason Mount, I put Yuri Tielemans. Now, I had Tielemans last year. I did a draft last year at Tielemans, and Tielemans was consistently scoring me a solid number of points, whether that was like 4, 5, 6 every week. I always felt like he was getting a few bonus points, even man of the match points. I just think Tielemans is a superb player, and that Leicester team have a great kind of dynamic in midfield, and he sits in there very perfectly. Scores some really good goals. Has scored a few long distance goals last season. Can be creative as well. I just think he's quite reliable, gets you points, and does the job. And then finally, I've captained this week Mohamed Salah. For me, Salah's a no-brainer. Regardless if he has a good season or not, he scores 20 plus goals. They're playing Norwich in the first game. I fully expect him to at least assist, if not score. If Liverpool don't beat Norwich, I'll be surprised. Newcastle beat them in a pre-season friendly 3-0 last week. So if Liverpool aren't beating Norwich, then I'll be worried. And I do think if you're going to try and fill a team in your fantasy team to start off, I think Liverpool are a really good shout. They have probably certainly the easiest opening day. I'm not sure about the other fixtures. I haven't properly looked. But I do think that Salah as captain is a good shout this week. I think he's been picked by pretty much everybody. 51%, so less than Luke Shaw, but he got the second highest number of points last year in fantasy overall. So surely a no-brainer. I think expect a goal or two. You're maybe looking at, if you captain them, 10 plus points maybe for a good solid start. It's a good solid start. My other midfielder I have is Jack Grealish. He was 8 million, and I've put him in because I had him in last year when he was at Villa, and he got me a whole pile of points. Now, obviously, it's a different kettle of fish this season. We have no idea what impact Grealish will have on the City team. You would think for £100 million he will start. I would hope so. If you're paying that money for a sub, I'd be seriously concerned. But if Grealish hits the ground running, he could be a great person to have in your team, and his value could go up, so it might be good to get him in now. I have him on the bench because they're playing Spurs City on Sunday, and I have no idea if he'll even start. So I didn't want to risk that going into the first game of the season. Finally, up front, I have to back my man Callum Wilson. Now, Callum Wilson for a forward's relatively cheap. I think he's 7 million, 7.5. And he got 134 points last season and didn't play a lot. He played just over 2,000 minutes. He was injured for a good portion of the season, but he scores goals for Newcastle whenever he's needed. I found him to be quite reliable last season, certainly in the draft that I had him in. Whenever he was fit, he was getting me quite a few points. Obviously, we play West Ham first. Sorry, I should say Newcastle. I am a Newcastle fan, for those who don't know. I feel like I say that all the time. And I think that with Callum Wilson, Newcastle are going to struggle this season, I think. But I think that he'll score goals. And if he doesn't, you can swap him out, get somebody else in. And then I also picked Harry Kane. Now, it's uncertain where he's going to be. I risked it. I massively risked it. I have no idea if he's going to play on Sunday. I have no idea what the status is with him, whether he's going to City, whether he's staying at Spurs. But if he plays, again, I think he'll score 20 plus goals this season. I think you're looking at three main contenders for 20 plus goals: Salah, Kane, and Lukaku. Obviously, Lukaku's not available to buy yet, but I think in your fantasy team you should have, if you can, two of Kane, Salah, and Lukaku, because I think those guys are going to score a lot of goals this season, and they're going to do well. Heung-min Son as well will be a good shout, having him there in the midfield as well. Obviously, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, when he's fit again, would be great in your defence. But obviously, you can't have everyone. You have to have budget players. But I think Kane could be a decent shout. I think he could score a good few goals if he's up for it this season. And honestly, my last pick was purely budgetary reasons. Omofemi, I don't even know if he'll play. He was 4.5 million. I think, look, a lot of people have picked him because he's 4.5 million, and there's very few strikers in the game that are 4.5 million pounds. Now, I think if you're looking for other suggestions or shouts, I did a lot of kind of mid-range. I didn't go massive. I picked two very expensive players, and all of them were mid-range. If you're looking for more mid-range strikers, I think Danny Ings would be very good up front. I think Mikel Antonio could be very good up front as well. If you're looking for that kind of not bank-breaking signing up front, but again, it's up to you. Now, I also think Sancho could be a decent shout, but we just have no idea how he's going to be. So is it worth risking £9.5 million on a player that you have no idea if they'll play or not? Do you know what I mean? That's just kind of how I see it. That's my fantasy team. What are your guys' thoughts? By the way, I've called myself Abra Dubravka. I think that's smart enough, isn't it? I'm sure other people have that too. I don't think it's that creative, but I came up with it and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And a reminder, guys, that you need to have your fantasy team done by tomorrow afternoon, because the first game is tomorrow night between Brentford and Arsenal. I should say then, mentioning Brentford, another good shout would be Ivan Toney up front. I think he's £6 million, but he could score a good few goals for Brentford. And also, if he does make the move, and this could be biased from me, and apologies if it is, but I think Joe Willock could be a good one for the midfield. He'll be cheap and he might score a few goals. So just keep an eye out on those players. I will keep you updated with my fantasy team as we move through the season. I'm sure Luke will as well whenever he's back. But that is my fantasy team. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Have I scuffed it? Am I not very good? Probably. But we'll see how it goes. So that's fantasy team. A lot of people are interested to hear this, actually. I know that's kind of a big thing when it comes to the start of the season is, who's in your fantasy team? How are you feeling for fantasy? A lot of people get very committed to it, etc. I'm going to try and stay as committed as possible this season. With this podcast going, I'm going to try and really make an effort to look after that team and try and do as well as I can. But I'm not very good, I'll be honest. But moving on to the second portion of the show, we are going to go through the Premier League table and every position that I think we're going to finish up in. And then I'm going to save this, and then at the end of the season, I'll go back and see how well did I actually do. Let's find out. So, BBC Sport have an excellent simulator thing, I suppose you could call it, where you can predict your Premier League table and add the team the whole way up from first the whole way down. So, let's get cracking. Right, I'm going to start from bottom up. Now, I might end up doing relegation zone and then the top 7 and then in between, because I find that the in between stages are very, very difficult to choose. But let's go to the relegation zone first. Right. Please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. There's only one team I see finishing bottom. They lost Buendia. Did they lose someone else? Timu Pukki for me is not good enough up front. Again, Newcastle played them in a pre-season friendly last week and they beat them 3-0. In a game that doesn't matter, and both teams were. I don't think Newcastle played their full team. They might have done. I don't know. Didn't pay too much attention. But for me, the only team I see finishing bottom of this league are Norwich. I think what they struggle with is holding on to players. Now they've held on to Aaron's. They've still got Todd Cantwell, who is like a Luke Sherwin. Luke Sherwin's his lookalike. And yes, they've got a few decent players, but every season they go down, they come back up. They are the ultimate yo-yo club. And I think the problem is that they don't do enough business or enough good business. Yes, they sell on some of their great players for a good fee, and I think Buendia could do very well this season. But they don't reinvest it well enough into the club. And the problem is that every season, we've seen Daniel Farke, the last couple of seasons of in the Premier League, complaining about the money that they have and the issues that they have and how they're never going to compete. And I think it might happen again. I really do. The next team that I see going down is actually Burnley. I think Burnley have been saved so many times by Sean Dyche. And with the transfer window kind of hotting up at the minute and people are making signings left, right and centre, Burnley with new owners haven't really done much. They've got that same squad. I think they've got the oldest squad in the Premier League at an average age of like 30. I was going to say 20, that would be very young. I think it's about 30 and a half or something. Ridiculous. Very, very old. And they struggled last season. And I think they may struggle again this season. And I just, time and time again, Sean Dyche delivers. And I just feel like this year could be the year where it just doesn't happen for them. Which, that's just the way I see it. I do think it's, it is what it is. Ultimately, I think Burnley will go down. And finally, in 18th place, controversially maybe, but I don't know, the business they've done this summer is really bizarre. But I think Southampton might go down. I just think it's really weird, the business that they've done. Let me just look up here their ins and outs. But, Danny Ings, the sale of Danny Ings was so random. It came out of nowhere. It was just like, it just kind of happened and then boom, done. Right, so what we have, I'll tell you all their arrivals, okay? So they've obviously just signed Adam Armstrong from Blackburn, which is interesting. Obviously not proven, but interesting, nevertheless. Proven in the Championship, I should say, not proven in the Premier League. I should have made that clear. They signed a left-back from Brest in Liga. They signed 2 Chelsea under-23 players. One of them for a $5 million fee, Valentino Livramento in the right midfield, and Brua, I think his name is, up front. They've signed Theo Walcott on a free transfer from Everton. I think that was always going to happen, really. So that's that. But then departures. Their big departure really is Danny Ings, who scored a lot of their goals, and it puts a lot of pressure on Adam Armstrong to come in and deliver. But also, Ryan Bertrand went to Leicester. I don't think he was doing much, was he? Really? So, yeah, I just don't know. I just feel like with the way Southampton are going, I just they were so leaky in defence. They haven't improved their defence really at all. They brought a left back in, but I don't really think the left back was a problem. And I think that I just don't know if we're going to have enough up front. It puts a lot of pressure on Adam Armstrong and Shea Adams. It really does. So for me, that's my bottom 3. For me, the next easiest pick is 17th. I'm going to be brutally honest. I do think Newcastle are finishing 17th this season. We're so bad. Like we're just so bad. And yes, I think pretty much as I'm recording, it looks like the Willock signing's on the brink. But there's not enough. There's going to be no more signings elsewhere. We can talk all day, every day about the ownership saga and what's going on there and how that's impacted the signings that we're likely would have made, could have made. But I just don't see us. I keep saying us. I don't need to stop that. It's a bad habit. But I just can't see Newcastle doing anything. The one caveat is, if Newcastle play the way they played towards the end of last season, then I think they'll be totally fine. But my worry is that Steve Bruce will go back to Bruce ball, because when you start a season, obviously, there's no real threat or danger at the start. So I just worry it's going to be a bit of a Steve Bruce ball masterclass, and a lot of sitting back and not doing much, especially when those top teams have improved even more from last season. United have improved massively. Chelsea have improved their ranks again. Liverpool are back stronger. City have improved with Grealish coming in, and it's just like we're never going to compete. I am now actually fearful of those teams because they're so strong, so strong. I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go up to the top four because that's going to be easiest for me again as well. So, first and second for me are clear cut, and then third and fourth, as in like who fits the top two and then who fits third and fourth. My top four is pretty clear, and my order of which goes which is the most difficult thing for me. I feel like I might get a bit of hate for this, but I think Liverpool finished fourth. My main thought process there really is it's going to be really, really competitive at top four. This actually isn't a slight on Liverpool. I think the gap between first and fourth is going to be very, very small. I think it's going to be very competitive right up to the end. But I think that Liverpool have made the least kind of squad improvements, maybe you would say. And I get the argument that all their best players are coming, but not all their best players, but their best player is back. We don't know how Van Dijk's going to be, but he's back, and that system can work again. And we could be seeing a pretty terrifying midfield of Fabinho, Henderson, and I feel like I'm forgetting someone, Thiago. This could be Thiago's season to shine. I would personally like to see it, but I don't know how that's going to go. But when I put Liverpool fourth, I don't expect there to be a big gap between them and whoever finished first. I really don't. And I think it's going to be very tight. I think there's just going to be a couple of things that will sweat. Down third for me, I'm going to go Manchester United. United are one signing away from being serious title contenders in terms of they need a central defensive midfielder, in my opinion, because I don't think Scott McTominay or Fred are good enough, or Matic, who's 35 now, 34, something like that. And I think that United have, for me, made two excellent signings. I think Sancho could be brilliant, and I think that Varane brings a level of stability that centre back pairing haven't had. Like, as much as people meme Maguire has been really good. He's actually been very, very good, and I think that Lindelof just isn't good enough at the back. Bay isn't good enough. I think Varane coming in makes an absolute world of difference to that centre back pairing, and I think that if Luke Shaw's on form, if Wan-Bissaka can get a good season in, I think they're going to be really, really solid at the back. I think it's going to be tight. Again, I keep saying this, but I think this top four is going to be so tight. I really do. But United, for me, I think will just pip Liverpool into third place. Now, I'm going off the news that we know now, right, for my first and second positions, but my opinion changes if something happens. But for me, people will be like, you're mad. For me, I think Man City finished second. If they don't sign a striker, if they don't sign Harry Kane or even a kind of that next level striker, then I think City are going to be pipped by Chelsea. Spoilers, I'll just put them in now anyway. I think people knew where that was going. I think City, whilst they've signed Grealish, which is, quite the signing, and I do think they've botched. I wouldn't say botched, that's not fair, but let's say the Grealish signing was ongoing and then Messi announced he was leaving. I would say that Grealish signing would have been cancelled and City would have taken Messi, but because they're the only club really, other than PSG, that could have really taken on his wage demands. But Grealish coming in is exciting. Of course it is. He's excellent. Everybody loves Grealish. But obviously there's doubts over his position at a top 4 club. He's obviously just played for Villa, has not European football experience. It'll be really interesting to see how he gets on. But the reason I put Chelsea top is because it's pretty certain that Lukaku is going to Chelsea in a ridiculous deal. That, again, if you'd said to me 3 weeks ago Lukaku's going to Chelsea, I'd be like, what are you talking about? There's no way that's going to happen. I just think Chelsea could be outstanding this season. I don't know if anybody watched the Super League that was on last night. And yes, it finished in a 1-1 draw, and I went to penalties. But I just think Chelsea has something about them. You know, we saw City, not the strongest City team, to be fair, in the Community Shield, and they didn't look great, and they are missing that striker. That's what they're missing up front. Gabriel Jesus just hasn't done it. If he does it this season, then we'll never know. But with Chelsea, I think Havertz's going to have a breakout season. I think Lukaku comes in. I think that brings confidence to the entire squad. Now, what I don't know is, does Werner then play out the left? Or does Werner stay on the bench? I'll be interested to see how Chelsea line up. But for me, I think Chelsea will pip City to the league. Unless Man City sign Harry Kane. If Man City sign Harry Kane, then it's going to be disgusting. I think it's going to be disgusting. And City basically have no excuse to not go on and challenge PSG for the Champions League should they sign Kane. What are your thoughts on my top 4 and my relegation zone? It was really difficult to choose the top, kind of the order of the top 4. Bottom 3, not so much, but anyway, we'll move on. But we're going to the 5th, 6th, and 7th. For me, straight away, I just think they're now up there constantly. I'm only joking. I think Leicester are 5th. For me, I think Leicester finished 5th. Leicester, for me, are now a top 6 side, like a consistent top 6 side, and they still don't get the respect I feel they deserve. The business management of Leicester is an absolute treat. I don't know if you've really studied into that or looked into it, but the way they go about selling players and then their hiring process is just a joy. And the players they bring into the Premier League are just exceptional. They're a great team unit. I think Brendan Rodgers genuinely is a fantastic manager. Liverpool fans, have different feelings on him because of the second place and the bottling. But I think last season, they went on and they won the FA Cup. Massive. I think that was superb. And I think that Leicester could do really well this season. I hope they do. I really like Leicester. I think Leicester's almost everybody's second team. You just can't not hate with. You can't not like. Yeah, double negative. You can't not like Leicester. They're just excellent, and I think they'll definitely. Well, definitely tough, but I think they'll certainly be in that kind of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th area. 6th place. It all depends what happens, but I do think Spurs will finish 6th. If they keep Harry Kane, I think they'll finish certainly the Europa League places. They made that sign at the centre back. I think that could be really good. Nuno is going to be interesting to see how he copes at a kind of better club. We saw him do well with Wolves. He took them to Europe. They did okay in the Europa League, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. But I do think Spurs have a bit of something about them. I think there's definitely reason to keep an eye on Spurs. I don't think they'll challenge top 4, but I think people are laughing at us in their banter club. But I do think if they can keep Kane, and that Son Kane partnership works just as well as it did last season, then they'll definitely be in the hunt for a European spot. Then making the Europa Conference League spot for me, it's a toss-up actually between Villa and Arsenal. But I'm going to go Arsenal, and the reason being is that Arsenal don't have any European football next season. And that could work to their advantage. They're playing less games. But again, Ben White 53 million. I just don't see it personally. I don't. Sean Wright Phillips said yesterday that Ben White was a better signing than Raphael Varane, but Ben White is 10 million more, if not more than that, than Varane was. What? I don't understand. I worry for Arsenal. I think I've been very generous to them here, putting them 7th, because I think they could easily finish 10th. But I think it's the lack of European football for me that puts Arsenal up into that kind of European Conference League position. That's not where they want to be. Of course, they want to be top 4, but that's not going to happen. They're not a top 4 side anymore. Aubameyang needs to get his form back together if they want to succeed at all. I just worry for Arsenal. I worry for Arsenal fans as well. I think Arsenal fans have unrealistic expectations that need to be managed better, but we'll see. It'll be an interesting season. Tomorrow night will be interesting when they play Brentford. Brentford are an unknown quantity to Premier League teams, and they have nothing to lose. And I think that could work in their favour. So we'll see what happens with Arsenal. In 8th place, I think, let's see who's left. Yeah, I think it has to be Aston Villa. For me, I think Villa have made some excellent signings. I think they've been really, really shrewd with their mark, with how they've done their business. Grealish went out for what? 100 million, was it? And they've reinvested that money with some really impressive signings that I think will really push them forward. First of all, they signed Buendia from Norwich on the right wing for £35 million, which, whilst higher than what he's probably worth, they've done very well there. Danny Ings then, out of nowhere for £32 million, centre forward. He's 29 years old. He was great for Southampton. He's in his prime now, like that 28 to 31 age range is your prime. Really, that's when you've got the kind of the best knowledge and understanding. That could be a really great signing. I don't know what that means for Ollie Watkins. I really don't. Who also had a great I thought he had a great year last year. But that's a great signing. Leon Bailey on the left wing for 28 million. I also think that's a great signing too. I don't know much about him personally. I just know that he's well thought of. I think a replacement for Jack Grealish, you're never going to truly replace Jack Grealish. But when you make 3 signings and also bring in on a free transfer Ashley Young, who's got plenty of experience, who's probably hungry to do well in the Premier League, and Tuanzebe, who's got something to prove, a loan transfer for United, I think that's a great get. If he'll be looking to prove himself, looking to get a bit of experience. I think what Villa are doing is quite exciting, and they really are pushing those European places. Well, it'll be remain to be seen, but I just think they're excellent. Now, all those transfers cost them £95 million. So what they've done is they've reinvested all the money they got from Grealish, which in the end was 105 million, and put it into 3 players. Now, that's the dream. That's what you want to do. And you put it into 3 pretty good players as well. Buendia is exciting. Danny Ings is proven. And Leon Bailey is also quite exciting. Very young, 23 and 24. The 2 wingers are respectively. I just think they've done great business. And I think don't be surprised to see them in the top half of the table, pushing for a European place at all. Don't be. 9th, I think, will be interesting. Now, it's between 9th and 10th for between 2 clubs. It's between Everton and Leeds. Now, I want to make a more informed decision. So let's search Everton's transfer history, or for this year, because I think that if they've done well there, then I think that they could be solid. But they brought in Damari Gray, Andros Townsend, Moise Keane's back from PSG, apparently. Interesting. So they actually haven't done very much. And so, that is interesting. Well, they also haven't sold very many players either. So, yeah, Everton haven't changed much, actually. Well, there'll be no Sigurdsson playing. Anyway, I think I'll put Leeds 9th. I think Leeds, for me, it just can't be a one-season wonder. I hope not anyway, for their sake. I think they've just got an excellent team unit there. I think they play some really exciting football. You've seen Rafinha do well. We've seen Luke Ayling. We've seen Harrison. We've seen Click. We've seen Dallas, Meslier, and Nets. They're just an exciting team. Hopefully Patrick Bamford can recreate what he did last season. But I think for me, Leeds finished 9th, and then 10th. I think Everton will finish 10th. Then I think with Rafa at the helm, I think he'll be smart. I think if he can get Calvert-Lewin firing, I think is he injured to start off the season? I'm not 100% sure, but I think if you can get him firing, scoring goals, Richarlison in good form. They've kept those big players as well. They haven't lost anyone, so if he can play a good style of football, then I think Everton can do well. We're now left with 6 teams. So let me see. Let's go 16th. Let's go from 16th. For me in 16th, I think Watford will finish 16th. I just think Watford have a bit of something about them. I know they're not. A lot of people have them to be relegated, but I think that Watford might come up with something to prove. I think that I don't know. My gut just tells me they won't get relegated and they'll finish above Newcastle for some reason. I just think with Sarr on that team, they are exciting. They've got some great players in there, and I think that they could do a job. That'll be interesting to see. I've put that in a kind of regret about Watford. I've kind of forgot about Watford, but no, I think Watford will finish 16th. I'll keep them at 16th for now. No, I'll keep them there. Right, we've got 5 teams left. 15th place will go to Brighton and Hove Albion. I've seen a lot of people put Brighton at 11th, 12th, and I don't understand it because they've sold Ben White for £50 million and they've done nothing to reinvest it yet. Now, obviously, that could come and that might change, but they don't really have a great striker. They don't score. Their XG was massive last season. There was the biggest difference in their goals scored and their XGs, and they had a really high XG and they'd scored far less goals. So their strikers aren't doing it for them. So I just think Brighton are gonna kind of have that wee bit relegation battle, but be comfortable enough. But I just don't understand why people have them so high. I don't get it. Let me know in the comments why Brighton deserve to be higher than 15th place. Personally, I don't understand. 14th place will go Wolves. Wolves don't excite me in the slightest, to be honest, and it is kind of a joke how it's just like Portugal FC. I don't know with Wolves. They didn't do very well last season. I don't think they're going to do very well this season. They'll be solid, but they're not going to be great. They need Jimenez to be scoring goals. That's not a guarantee. I just don't. I don't know anything about their new manager. In fact, I can't. I'm so bad I couldn't even tell you his name at this stage. But I don't know. Wolves just sitting kind of 14th, just kind of languishing, just kind of being there. They're just kind of there. 13th, I'm going to go for Brentford. I'm quite excited about Brentford, actually. I think Brentford actually offer a lot. Ivan Toney was exceptional last season. I think could be exceptional again this season. And I think that Brentford have that Leeds factor about them. They're quite exciting. If they do go down, I wouldn't be worried because they've got a Leicester style business model where they bring these great players in. They cultivate them and then they sell them on for maybe 40, 50 million or maybe 30 even, and then use that money to reinvest in other young players and bring them through. And I think Brentford maybe in 5 years could be pretty permanent in the Premier League. They could yo-yo a bit, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and put them 13th. I think they might have something about them. I really do. I know they haven't changed much from the Championship squad, but I don't think that changes much because Leeds didn't either, and look how well Leeds did last season. So keep an eye on Brentford. They obviously start the Premier League. They're the first team, along with Arsenal, to play tomorrow. So keep an eye on them. I think they could be very exciting and very good to watch. In 12th, I'm going to go Crystal Palace. It's a bit of a rogue choice to have them as high up as they are, but they've made some pretty exciting transfers. I don't know how Patrick Vieira is going to do. I don't think he's proven himself very well as a manager, but what I do think is that Palace are now a far younger squad than they were last season. They've got rid of a lot of their older players. Now, getting rid of older players gets rid of experience, of course it does, and that's an issue. But they've got a young, they still have Zaha. I think they still have Eze. And there's some really great players that have come through, some exciting young talent. So keep an eye out in Crystal Palace as well. I think that'll be a team that could cause a few upsets. Finally, in 11th place, I'm going to go for West Ham, who were the surprise of the season last season. I don't think we're going to get that level this season from them, purely because they're playing European football, and I think that will have an impact on how they do. Now, what I will say is the Europa Conference League is a place in which West Ham actually have a chance of doing quite well. I feel if they can put in some great performances, if you have Souček, I'm trying to think of if Mikel Antonio's firing, Benrahma, if all these players are kind of doing their bit, I think they could do well in Europe, but I do think that's going to have a detriment on their Premier League appearances. I think that's going to set them back down into 11th place. Respectable, but probably not where they want to be. So there we go. Let's give a full recap for you guys of my Premier League predictions. Chelsea in first, followed by Man City in second, United in third, Liverpool in fourth. Europa League spot, Leicester in fifth, Spurs finished sixth, and Arsenal in seventh. Villa 8th, Leeds 9th, Everton 10th, West Ham 11th, Crystal Palace 12th, Brentford 13th, Wolves 14th, Brighton 15th, Watford 16th, Newcastle 17th, and in the relegation zone, we have Southampton, Burnley, and Norwich. Let me confirm my selection. Happy days. There you go. It's been put in. It's been put in. It's in the system. Now, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Get your thoughts down below in the comments section. Just let me know exactly how you feel the Premier League is going to go this season. Am I wildly wrong, or do you think I might actually be right? Let me know. But that'll end the first episode of the podcast. I've gone a bit longer than I intended, but I hope you guys enjoyed this preview. Obviously, it's just a solo podcast, so you don't get Luke's dulcet tones, his good banter, his good crack. He will be back. He's just very, very busy this week. Didn't have time to come on and record on a Thursday afternoon, which is fair enough. So first podcast will be recorded. We're no longer going live. All of them will be recorded this weekend. We're going to record our first episode after all the matches this weekend. So if you want to get involved, check out, there'll be a clip on Facebook. It'll also be the intro to the podcast to learn how you can get involved with our podcast. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys. We really do appreciate it. The next podcast will go up probably Tuesday, hopefully. If I can get it sorted for them, that would be ideal. Thank you so much for listening. I have been StattoJoe. You have all been legends for watching and or listening to this podcast, and I will see you very, very shortly. Bye!